Prince Harry has been seen getting off a train in Kyiv in the Ukraine, a surprise visit, and it is the Kyiv Security Conference, Security Forum, taking part today and in the coming days. And Prince Harry is a surprise guest to take part in that security forum. Here, pictures just moments ago of him arriving there.
So he travelled to Kyiv by train after the Russian drone strike hitting a railway yard there, where at least one person was killed. And he's also praised Ukraine for bravely and successfully, in his words, defending Europe from Russia. He's saying it's good to be back in Ukraine and saying that it matters that we don't lose sight of the significance of Ukraine's contribution.
Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel and thank you so much for being here. If you're new, don't forget to subscribe so you never miss the deeper stories behind the headlines. Because today's story is one of those rare moments that cuts through the noise and reminds us what real impact can look like. Now, imagine this. You wake up, scroll through the news, and suddenly you see something completely unexpected. No build-up, no prior announcement, no media countdown. Just a headline that stops you in your tracks. Prince Harry has arrived in Kyiv. Just like that. And instantly, the conversation changes. Because in a world where almost everything is carefully staged, carefully timed, and carefully managed, moments like this feel different. They feel real. They feel unscripted. And they demand attention in a way that planned appearances often don't. Let's slow this down and really take it in. Ukraine is not a place where visits like this happen casually. It is a country navigating ongoing challenges, uncertainty, and pressure. Every day brings complexity, resilience, and effort from people working in incredibly difficult conditions. And into that environment, quietly and without announcement, Prince Harry chose to step in. Not for the first time, but again. And that word, again, is where the deeper meaning begins. Because showing up once can be symbolic. But returning? Returning is intentional. Returning suggests commitment. It suggests that this is not about a single moment of visibility, but about sustained awareness and engagement. When he arrived, his words were simple. Now that might sound understated, but sometimes the simplest words carry the most weight. Back. That word tells a story. It tells people, I remember, I care, I'm still paying attention. And in a global environment where attention shifts quickly, that kind of continuity matters more than ever. Now let's talk about why he said he came, because this is where purpose becomes clear. In his remarks, he explained that he wanted to remind people, back home and around the world, what Ukraine is up against. And that's important, because here's the reality. Attention fades. Not because people don't care, but because the world is constantly moving. New headlines replace old ones. New crises take center stage. And slowly, even the most urgent situations begin to slip out of daily conversation. But the reality on the ground doesn't change just because attention shifts. And that's why reminders matter. That's why presence matters. By showing up, Prince Harry wasn't just making a visit. He was redirecting focus. He was saying, without saying it directly, this is still happening. This still matters. People are still working, still struggling, still pushing forward every single day. And that kind of message lands differently when it comes from someone who is physically there. Now let's talk about the journey itself, because this is one of the most interesting details. He travelled with Ukrainian Railways for the second time. And again, this might sound like a small detail, but it's not. Because how you travel says something about how you engage. Choosing to travel in the same way people on the ground do is a form of connection. It's a way of stepping into the reality of a place rather than observing it from a distance. And Ukrainian Railways made it clear that they took pride in this moment. They ensured his journey ran smoothly. They created warmth on a cold day. They made sure everything stayed on schedule, and they expressed honour in being part of his visit. That response is powerful, because it shows that his presence was not just acknowledged, it was welcomed. Now picture the arrival, the atmosphere, the moment when people realise who has arrived. There's applause.
It's an honour and a privilege to return to Kyiv, my third visit to your beautiful country.
There's recognition. There's a visible reaction. And those reactions matter, because they are not scripted. They are not controlled. They are human. They reflect how people feel in that moment. And what we saw was appreciation. Now let's talk about the ripple effect, because the moment this news broke, it didn't stay local. It spread globally. Media outlets picked it up. Social platforms amplified it. Discussions began almost instantly. And suddenly, Ukraine was back in the center of global conversation. That's the power of a moment like this. It doesn't just exist, it expands. And here's something important to understand. This wasn't just about being seen, it was about what being seen does. It brings attention, it sparks conversation. It reminds people to look again at something they may have stopped actively thinking about. And in today's world, attention is one of the most powerful tools there is. Now, let's go deeper into what makes this kind of action resonate. Because people are not just watching what happens, they're analysing it. They're asking questions. Why now? Why this way? What does it mean? And when something feels authentic, when it doesn't feel overproduced or overly controlled, it stands out. That's exactly what this felt like. Authentic, purpose-driven, focused. And that's why the reaction has been so strong, because people can sense the difference between something that is done for visibility and something that is done with intention. And this clearly fell into the second category. Now let's step back and look at the broader pattern. Over time, Prince Harry has built a public identity that centres around engagement, showing up, being present, focusing on issues that matter. And whether people agree with every aspect of that approach or not, there is consistency in it. And consistency builds credibility, because anyone can speak, anyone can comment, anyone can express concern from a distance. But showing up, that requires something more. It requires commitment. It requires intention. It requires a willingness to step into complex environments and engage directly. Now, let's also talk about timing, because timing matters. A surprise visit creates a different kind of impact than a planned one. It feels immediate. It feels genuine. It removes the expectation of performance. and it allows the moment to speak for itself. That's what we saw here. A moment that wasn't prepackaged. A moment that unfolded naturally. And because of that, it felt more real. Now think about the message this sends beyond the immediate visit. It sends a message about awareness, about responsibility, about using visibility in a way that draws attention to something bigger than oneself. And in a media landscape that often focuses on spectacle, that kind of shift stands out. It reminds people that public figures can choose how they engage. They can choose what they highlight. They can choose where they show up. And those choices matter. Now, as this story continues to circulate, different people will interpret it in different ways. Some will focus on the symbolism, some will focus on the timing, some will focus on the broader implications. But across all of those perspectives, one thing remains constant. This moment happened. It was real, and it had impact. And sometimes that's enough. Because in a world filled with noise, with constant updates, with endless cycles of information, moments that cut through and redirect attention are rare. And when they happen, they matter. So as we reflect on this, the takeaway becomes clear. This was not just a visit. It was a reminder that awareness requires effort, that attention needs to be renewed, and that sometimes the most powerful way to make a statement is simply to show up. And that's exactly what Prince Harry did. He showed up. He spoke. He reminded. And in doing so, he created a moment that brought global focus back to something that continues to matter deeply. Thank you so much for watching. If you found this video insightful, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And I'd really like to hear your thoughts. What do you think about this surprise visit? Do you believe moments like this make a difference? Or do you see it differently? Let's talk about it in the comments. Take care, stay informed, and I'll see you in the next video.